it's not like certain places where it's like, oh, the east side of the state is this school and the west side of the state is this school. No, we are intermingled here in this great state.
I'm not gonna lie, I wish we did have like a east side and a west side. You can be like,
Well, I think
west side.
If I had to guess, I think more people on the east side are probably on your team.
That's fair.
It's fair. Just a guess. Something about the way of life over there, which I love.
You're saying that they're a fan of the finer things, Justin, like some all camo,
maybe
up in a
maybe
deer blind?
Potentially. It's interesting that Kellen Clemens from Burns ended up in Oregon, but nevertheless, we now have a new type of civil war, and it is going to be weird. It is going to be weird. I'm intrigued, as I have been saying since the summer, that there was magic in this game. There always was. Case in point, if you go to beaversedge.com right now, Brenden Slaughter, publisher, who's also a super producer of this program, put together, a list of top 5 games between Oregon and Oregon State since 1998. And you look at some of these games, and then you look at the outcomes. And if you were there, like I was for all of them, there's some inexplicable outcomes in some of these games. They say, throw out the records for this game, right? Well, something about it being at the end of the year, something about, and in most years, not always, but in most years, Oregon State was trying to play spoiler, and Oregon was trying to get past the Beavs to go on to accomplish something. Of course, that got flipped a couple of times. Obviously, 2008, Oregon played the spoiler, but for a good chunk of this rivalry, especially in the Bellotti, Chip, Mike Riley era, Oregon State was there to try to play spoiler, because other than 2008, 2009, and 2000, there really was never quite a game where both teams had equal stakes. Do you know what I mean? I guess
2000 would be a pretty...
That's what I said. I said 2000,
yeah,
2000, 08, 09. And even 08 wasn't equal stakes because the Ducks couldn't go to the Rose Bowl, so it wasn't even equal stakes then. So...
It turns out, if you beat USC, Oregon State, you still got to beat Oregon, to get to the promise.
Yeah, that's a tough one.
Oregon didn't beat USC that year. Know that much for a fact. So it's funny how things work.
Trying to think back in 2008.
Well, I know that USC, I can't remember this. I know that USC team went 12-1, and that was Mark Sanchez's pretty much like revenge tour year, which is kind of funny.
Yeah, that might have been the Bellotti Pete Carroll challenge, and then challenge, and then challenge the challenge, and then Pete Carroll dropped 3 F-bombs on him. That might have been that game now that I think about it. That'll be a fun YouTube. Go look up Pete Carroll curses at Mike Bellotti. But there was always something kind of special and magical about the game. And we joke about uniforms aren't magic, but games are. And I think it's always been something with the stadiums, something with the fans. And you guys might think I'm being a little, Pollyanna-ish here, but there is an energy and a vibe and a feel when you walk into a building or an arena or a stadium when it's an important game for both sides. And even in years where Oregon State was completely out of it, Civil War game was always something to play for. It was every Oregon fan who is my age knows this, that in 1993, Oregon State would beat Oregon. The year before Oregon would go on to win the conference, go to the Rose Bowl in 1994. In 1993, Oregon State beat Oregon in Autzen Stadium. I believe that was their 3rd win of the season. And in 1993, Oregon State, for Christmas, put out a hype video saying, "We own the state." 3-win team put out a highlight video. We own the state. Because that's the kind of magic that was always in this game. You even go back to 1994. And I know Brendan's list is from 1998 on, but 1994, Oregon has to beat Oregon State to go to the Rose Bowl. Oregon State, they were a couple of years away from firing Jerry Pettibone. I believe Jerry Pettibone would be fired the next year. They were not good. Oregon needed a last-minute drive and a screen pass to Dino Filia to avoid losing that game. Heck, you can go back to 1990, where Oregon, again, had bowl games on 6-3 ball games in this rivalry. So, now, Brenden, yours is behind a paywall, and people should be paying. I thought I had a password from my buddy, but I don't. But
I could share some of the games. Obviously, it's the details that we wanted to keep.
But I do. So you put so honorable mentions here. Now these are the best games according from the Beavers' perspective, which I like.
And to that point, Justin, say you want to read the article. We have a 30-day free trial at Beaver's Edge. Go check it out. Get everything for this week.
Do I got to put in a credit?
That being said,
do I got to put in a credit card to get a 30-day free trial?
Yeah, you do.
Okay.
You know, because you don't. It's like anything else. You know, you don't cancel it, then we'll come. But check it out. Tell a friend. Justin says it all the time. But
tell two if you like it.
Right. But no, to your point, Justin. Anything you want to ask about this particular story?
Well, all right, so let's go to 2004 because it's in the honorable mentions, and again, that's one of those games where Oregon was limping in. They had just lost to Cal the week before, and Oregon State was what? They were on their way to a bowl game. Oregon's looking to play spoiler. One of the most disappointing Oregon teams of all time. Sorry, boys, but it was. And boy, I can remember, and it's interesting because you've got Derek Anderson from Scappoose, Bill Swancutt, who I believe went to Sprague, and just those years looking back of those hard scrabble Oregon kids who always seemed to manage to find their way up to Corvallis. Oregon had a couple here and there, but always seemed to find their way to Corvallis and just put it on Oregon. That was 50-21. That was a season that everybody was ready to be done with in Eugene. Swancutt was a monster that day.
I mean, yeah, it makes,
absolute monster.
It makes the list because that might be the last time Oregon State ever blows out Oregon. Like that was the most lopsided win in the series for Oregon State, and yeah, that probably won't happen again.
So then there's 06. Yeah, 06 was a tough one too. I think 06 because this is all from an Oregon State perspective, which I love. But I'm like trying to now put myself where I was during these games. Yeah. 06 was a driving rainstorm, if I'm not mistaken. Also, 06 was the season where Mike Bellotti could not decide which quarterback he wanted to play. I believe Brady Leaf got the start that game, and Oregon came down. And keep in mind, Oregon has never really had a great field goal kicker. They've had some good ones. They never really had a great field goal kicker. And I believe it was a 47-yarder in a driving rainstorm that Oregon was trying to kick that had absolutely no chance in that ball game. And the Beavs block it, and they walk off. And then there is 2013, which, in terms of uniforms, the greatest uniform game of all time. Because they brought back Oregon green versus Oregon State orange. Now, Brenden, you listed 2000 as the number one in terms of the biggest, which is interesting because there's 09 and then there's 2000. And I think Oregon fans would always kind of go to 09 because, well, they came out on top. And then the Beavs will always go to 2000. But in terms of, as an Oregon fan, heartbreaking victories, I think that's still the worst in terms of this series. Because as crazy as it sounds, and I know you were just a youngster, as crazy as it sounds, as good as Oregon State was that season, just like, you know how we look at certain teams and you go like, yeah, but they can't be good. Like the Lions. The Lions are good. They can't be good. They're the Lions. Even in 2000, Beavs coming off of a bowl game the year before, Erickson with all these players getting getting a win earlier in the season against what was supposed to be a very good USC team. Brenden, it's hard to imagine, but as an Oregon fan going in, they were like, there's still no way this Oregon team loses to the Beavs. That we didn't believe that they were good. And now you look back and go like, yeah, that might have been the most talented Oregon State team of all time in 2000.
I mean, it was. Not even might. Like, when you consider everything else, it was. It was.
But do you know what I'm saying? Like, in 2000, and also remember, I was 21, and so I was a big dumb doofus back then. But you had so many years of Oregon State being very bad. And then, they got a bowl game the year before, but still, they're not going to be. With the Rose Bowl on the line, there is no way that Joey Harrington and the boys go into, what is that? That's 5 interceptions. Why can't we cover their receivers? How do these guys keep breaking away every single time? Oh, it was a killer loss. Killer loss.
I think when you consider, like, that's the only BCS game, quote, Oregon State's been to in my lifetime. So that's why. Like, period. Conversation stops and finishes there. It's been 2 10-win seasons. You went to the Sun Bowl and the Vegas Bowl in those 2 10-win seasons. That's not a Fiesta Bowl. And, that is still the gold standard. We don't recognize who played quarterback that season. It was just like it's like in old NCAA football. We're just going to refer to him as QB number 9.
QB 9
on that team. But Ken Simonton, great dude. Chad Ochocinco, great dude. Some great dudes on defense. But yeah, I mean, I think that kind of Beaver. The reception that I was getting yesterday is, Beaver fans don't really they're on it. They're like, yeah, 2000's probably the best game all considering.
Mm-hmm.
Some come in with 98 and go, and I respect it where they're like, I'd sat in that stadium for 28 years of losing. I took a piece of that turf home that day. Like, I have some, and I respect it. I respect it big time because it was bad. Justin.
Now, in terms of the game, the 98 game was insane, right? It was.
That's why it's number 2.
Like, it was literal insanity. It was a double overtime. Oregon State had them. Oregon on a 4th down play. And it was a clear, by the way, for any Oregon State fan who's my age listening, it was a clear pass interference. Pass interference, flag thrown, but nobody saw the flag. You want to know why? Fans rushed the field. Beaver fans rushed the field. And it's like, whoa. There's a flag right there, guys. They have to push everybody back. And did Oregon State make them go back up into the stands? No, they did not. They let them stand on the sidelines of then, I believe it was Parker Stadium back then. When did it become Reser Stadium?
99.
Okay, yeah. So it's Parker Stadium, and they're just allowed to have their fan. Now, it turns out it's a pretty good advantage going into overtime when your fans are on the sideline. Also, it helps to have Ken Simonton on your team.
He was really good.
But that game was like, Akili Smith lost in all of it, was like lights out that day. Like, he went ballistic that day. Problem was Oregon couldn't stop Ken Simonton. Who the heck is this guy? Well, clearly he must be a junior. No, he's a freshman? Oh. It was a turning point. It was a turning point in the modern era, which is, I'm sure, why you started your list that day. At 1998, because before that, there's
not much. You want to go back?
There's some moral victories in there, and there's some way to go, boys, and we showed them that year, but there's not a lot.
We can go back to. You're right. Like, let's just gloss over the 70s and 80s. I can go back to the 60s. I can start talking about DeAndros, some great pumpkins.
I think I was looking at it. DeAndros is the only Oregon State coach that actually has a winning record.
Yeah, no, that's why. Despite it's funny, just like to tell people, Justin, or tell the aliens who don't know what it was like back then,
mm-hmm.
and you probably knew this too, I believe, with Rich Brooks, because the situation had flipped on its head. Oregon State back then, you could win 3 games a year, and as long as you beat your rival, you're fine. Like, DeAndros had at least 3 or 4 years where he had a losing record, but he beat Oregon. So it's like, that'll keep you going for a long time. Rich Brooks.
That was Rich Brooks. Rich Brooks was,
I
wasn't alive when Rich Brooks got hired, but, from talking to old school Oregon fans, it was like, wait, we're hiring this guy from the Beavs? What What are you
True.
talking about? Rich Brooks played for the Beavers.
True.
Can't hire this guy. And then I think he went like 16-3-1 in Civil War games. One of those is a toilet bowl. But yeah, you were able to save your season. So fun trip down memory lane. The other one you were asking me from a heartbreak perspective, like 2000 was huge heartbreak. 98 was as well because Oregon was on their way to a pretty good bowl game. And Oregon fans maybe didn't want to admit it, but in 98 when they lost that game, it was like, are they going to be good again? Are they going to get good? Because they'd never been good before. They stunk. It was like, are they good? But 2016 was the worst. Because you had to wonder at the time, is this all over? Because remember, Oregon went from Bellotti to Chip to Mark Helfrich, and 2 years earlier was playing the national title game. And 2 years later, Ryan Nall on a four-win beef team?
That was number 4. So,
yeah. On a 4-win beef team is put it on you while it's like, well, clearly Mark Helfrich is about to get fired. Is this all over? Is it done? Are we done now? That was the thought in 2016. Oh, that one was tough.
Yeah, that was and again, just knowing what we know now, and again, it's not an indictment on y'all, but it's just like Gary Anderson couldn't bleep and coach. Okay? Like it's
How did he get a Wisconsin and Oregon State job? Boy.
I have no idea. No idea.
Maybe he's a really good interviewer.
The world's best salesman.
Might be a good interviewer. All right. We have got on campus, interesting story out of Auburn. Is Cal good?
Wilcox, 5-for-1.
The 5-4-1 guy putting it on him? He's from Junction City. I had a fun Junction City tweet that's kind of been really popular as well. We wrap up hour number 1 next, 620 Rip City Radio. All right, time to wrap up hour number 1. Obviously, we are locked in and focused on Oregon State in the very special, very new, bright and shiny, out-of-the-box September version of Civil War. It's going to feel different. It's going to feel different. I don't know what it's going to be like watching Civil War with short sleeves on, but regardless, there are other things, believe it or not, going on in college football. And I know that the Pac-12 is dead, but I still... Brenden, do you still feel like a little kinship to maybe former Pac-12 schools, or are you just like you all left us hanging high and dry so you can all kick rocks, which I would respect either or. But, like, I felt pretty good when Utah beat the dog out of Baylor, and I felt pretty good when Cal went to Auburn and beat Auburn when all the SEC people were like, oh, Cal's not going to know what hit him.
You know how I feel about this game. I've been pretty vocal about it. It kind of is. It's like you talk all the time about a superiority complex, and now it's like, okay, so in every sense, it's you think you're better than us. So again,
but I'm just saying, how do you feel about former Pac-12 schools?
It depends on the school itself. I hate
because it felt kind of good
Colorado.
that when Cal beat. They're not really. They were new.
10 years.
You're right.
10 years.
Never really felt like it fit. Utah felt like a fit more than Colorado. Maybe because Utah won some games.
Yeah.
But like when Cal went and beat Auburn, it was like, yeah, we did. Oh wait, they're not us anymore. It's just weird. You know what I mean?
True. It's true.
But that was the only
ACC
thing that happened
logo.
with
Weird.
Cal and Auburn. There's also some internet stuff going on. Let's go on campus. All right, so I don't want to say shocking upset, but maybe one of the bigger upsets. Now, Auburn is not back yet. They still have some building to do. But if you've been looking at some of the recruiting over the last couple of years, Hugh Freeze in Auburn has been slowly but steadily trying to rebuild the cupboards there on the plains in Auburn, Alabama. And even still, it's an SEC school, right? There's no way that Cal and the Cal Berkeley Bears and their piddly little NIL, and they can't even build a new stadium, and they can't get funding for anything because they're just a bunch of Berkeley hippies who don't care about football. When they come down to the plains and they see the War Eagle, whoop, whoop, that's what they do.
It's kind of funny. Like, Justin's description is probably very apt for what Auburn fans think. Like, it's not dramatic. It's not. They guarantee
There's
that's
no
what they
way
think of
that
Berkeley.
and when they know the intensity of Jordan Hare, and then I saw somebody on Twitter like, you realize Cal played at like Husky Stadium, at Autzen Stadium, like those places have all been registered louder than Jordan Hare. I'm not saying that Autzen and Husky Stadium are a night game at LSU, but Jordan Hare, like, cool. I'd like to go there one day to watch a game, but it's not like it's the most intimidating environment that Cal's ever been in, especially Justin Wilcox, who coached at Tennessee, by the way.
Right, yeah.
So anyways, Cal goes in, smacks him right in the mouth. And Auburn's season now is taking a shift. They thought they might have been a playoff team. Don't think they were going to, but they thought maybe. Who knows? Well, apparently there were some other people unhappy as Peyton Thorne, who is the senior quarterback for Auburn, he appeared on The Next Round, which is, I believe, a podcast. Said bettors who what were they, 14-point favorites in that game? Auburn was like a big favorite in that game. I don't know exactly what it was.
Well, again, Auburn went into Berkeley. This is a home and home. So Auburn went into Berkeley and won last year. It was a 7-point game. And again, I don't know how Hugh Freeze or these fools for Auburn did not realize that, you may only need to score 21 points to beat a Justin Wilcox squad. But if you can't do that, I mean, they are annoyingly good year after year on defense. They are always like they were, what's the old say, a pebble in the craw, Justin.
I believe you're thinking a pebble in the shoe, stick in my craw.
Thank you. Thank you.
And a burr in your saddle.
Yes. Nice.
All of those things.
Yes.
Big time. But we could put a pebble in your craw. I don't know.
Pebble in the craw.
I don't know how that works. Maybe we'll try it. Let's see it. Let's see if we can't make it become a thing. But yeah, 21-14 was the final. Cal goes in, smacks him in the mouth. 4 interceptions he threw, and it turns out some bettors found his Venmo and were requesting his Venmo for money on bets lost. Now, this is an easy fix. You make your Venmo private, and you obviously decline, but I've always said there is no omelet that doesn't come with some broken eggs, right? There is no free lunch in the universe. Somebody and something has to pay the piper. And with sports betting now becoming more and more mainstream, and we talked about the 49ers yesterday, with sports betting becoming more and more mainstream, this is one of those broken eggs where crazy. And I say crazy, I don't mean that in the, hey, this guy's crazy. I mean, you have to be mentally ill to go through Venmo to try to find the account of the quarterback of the team that lost. And then to ask from, I'm not a doctor, don't take medical advice from me. But you got to be a certain type of crazy to be doing that. But this is one of the drawbacks of the sports betting becoming, I think, becoming more and more mainstream. I think it's a net positive in terms of what the revenue that it's bringing in, and especially maybe some of the taxes that are bringing in. But the negative is, yeah, you get doofuses on the internet who then find the quarterback's Venmo and ask for money.
I mean, it's terrible. I mean, I feel bad for. I've drawn a blank on his last name. Peyton was his
Peyton Thorne.
Thorne, yeah, and it's. We've seen it in the NFL, right? We've seen it in the NFL where guys have like hit up guys on social media and been like, "Pay me." I hate that part of the betting world.
This is the broken egg of the omelet that we have created. We have got a beautiful omelet of an hour number 2 coming up next. 620 Rip City Radio.
7 a.m. on a Wednesday. Brenden Slaughter with you for Rip City Mornings. The Tyreek Hill saga continues to unfold as Hill calls for the escalating police officer to be fired. NBA Commissioner Adam Silver says that NBA expansion will be on the table eventually. Heard that before. But it wasn't discussed at this Board of Governors meeting. And a crazy story that we've already discussed here in the first hour out of Auburn, Alabama, as quarterback Peyton Thorne says that sports bettors have been asking him for money via Venmo after the 21-14 loss to Cal. Like Justin said, psychopath traits to hit up a 18 to 22-year-old kid for money. Coming up on the big show, we're going to have Tyson Alger in hour number 3. Got Make or Miss. It's Rip City Mornings.
Hey, welcome back to Rip City Mornings, everybody. Hopefully you are having a fantastic Wednesday morning. You know, every once in a while, something happens when you grow up. And I may have mentioned it a couple of times. Last week was my birthday. I became officially in my mid-40s because I'm 45 years of age. Some may say I'm now officially middle-aged. I plan on living to like 110, 112, so I'm not even close to midlife. I feel like modern technology is going to fix a lot of things. So by the time I get up into my 80s or 90s, I feel like I'm going to have a whole nother like 30-year run coming up. AI, it might scare the daylights out of me, but it's going to fix some things. Just has every like medical advancement ever. So every once in a while, though, the reason why the best commercial, and we don't watch commercials on TV anymore, but Brenden, would you agree with me that the best commercials on TV, and I don't think it's particularly close, are the "We can't help you from becoming your parents"?
The new one with weather is fantastic. When it's like, I don't know, they said 30%, but I'm thinking I showed that to my mom recently, and I go, I already do 3 of these things. It's bad. Like
that's why they are the best commercials on TV. Whoever the writers are, like
Dr. Rick, baby,
they've figured it out. Whoever wrote that ad, like all of them, they figured it out. And I walked out of my house today, getting ready to come to the show before I got upset about traffic. Again, can't help you from becoming your parents. I'm upset about traffic on the way. And obviously it rained last night. And I was like, oh, good. The yard needed this.
Yep, that is the commercial. That is the commercial. You betcha.
I walked out of my house and I initially thought, oh, whew, good. It rained last night. Yard needed this.
That's fair.
Oh, man.
Because I caught myself doing the well, you know, the weatherman said 30%. It's looking more like a 60% chance of rain today. And
can I throw a confession out there?
It rained this morning. I actually did notice that too.
Yeah. Can I throw a confession out there? Because again, I will not lie to this audience. I will not blow smoke to this audience. When I screw up, I will be like, yep, screwed that one up. I'm a big dumb doofus. I'm right a lot though. I don't, when it says like 30% chance, I don't know what that means. I don't know what it means. Like, does it mean like at any particular time, like there's a 70% chance it's not gonna rain?
Yeah.
Because
percentages are easy.
That can't be the way it works, right? Because if it says 80% chance of rain, there's never been like a 20% chance it doesn't rain. I mean,
I don't know. I mean, it's...
Is it the amount of rain? Is it like what should be 100% of raindrop, it's going to be about... Is it for the hour, it's going to rain 20% of the time, maybe off... Like, I don't know what it means.
You are splitting hairs, Justin, because it's really easy to be a weather person in the state of Oregon. It rains 9 months out of the year. This has been my TED Talk.
Yeah, I would disagree with that. I think it's harder to be a meteorologist because if you say it's not going to rain, but then it does, which anybody would, and even if you're on like a 70% success rate, that 30%, But you think emails to quarterbacks are going to be bad? I could only imagine what's in the meteorologist.
But if it was me,
like I'm trying to have a birthday party outside, and you said it wasn't going to rain, and then it did, and then
I would only say it's not going to rain in July and August if I was a meteorologist.
You would just say,
yep, I just say July and August be solid. Every other month it could rain, folks.
Welcome back to News at 5. Let's
Brenden
get weather from Brenden. Brenden, it's going to rain. I'm out.
He would probably Brenden would be it'd be like you ever hear the
guys? It's going to rain. It's October. Get a coat. It's going to rain.
Like
I'm going to go.
It's true. Like I'd be like the inverse, like the sell low to win high, where it'd be like, all right, well, if they expect it to rain, it's a great surprise when it doesn't. Bingo. Genius.
So you're just giving nothing but bad news, and when it doesn't happen, people will
except for July and August. July and August, maybe June. Maybe we'll throw in June.
If any of you want to do something outside, you better do it then, because the rest of the time.
No, I'm just being a wise guy. But yeah, something like that. Something like that.
I don't know when this is like, 35% chance of rain.
I hear you.
I don't know what that means. My entire life, I look at it and be like, okay. I see the little thing on my phone and it says it might rain. I grab a coat. That's just kind of how it works. But yeah, total grumpy. Not even grumpy, but like a total like I'm becoming my parents. Rained last night. Good. That yard needed it. Yard needed that rain. I was getting a little patchy in certain spots. Even yesterday, I was telling Kelly, I was like, yeah, I better mow the lawn today. It's gonna rain tomorrow. So now I'm like timing out when I mow the lawn because All right, what do we got? What we got on the coming up in about 13 minutes? We are going to get to a make or miss. We have got some stuff we saw on the internet. Also, you mentioned it during the update. The NBA has they've pushed ahead talks of potential expansion, and I understand that there are far, far, far more complexities to this than I am aware of, in terms of obviously revenue sharing, in terms of TV contracts. Governorship and all of this. I understand that it is a whole lot easier than just flipping a switch, but it seems to me, what was the NBA recent television contract? $11 billion, something like that. It's like $11 billion over 10 years. Their new TV contract. Ratings in the NBA are down. They're making more money than they've ever made ever. They're making money hand over fist. It's about time we give Seattle their team back, shall we say? Can we just get
it's really simple. Seattle and Vegas.
We'll let Vegas have a team.
Yep. We moved 2 teams from the West. Justin and I have already done this. We moved 2 teams from the Western Conference into the Eastern Conference.
All right, so if we're moving Memphis
and New
Orleans, they should be in the Eastern Conference anyways.
Out the pool.
You guys are going, Memphis and New Orleans. John Zylon, you guys are going to the East, and Vegas
and Seattle.
It
fits like a glove when you do it that way. Now, granted, are there probably some logistical concerns?
That's why I said I know there's a gajillion steps that have to be taken, and there's a whole lot more complexity to this, but it doesn't seem like it should be all that difficult.
Heck, Minnesota could be in the East. I know that's kind of Midwest, but they could be in the East. Like, you were talking about Memphis and New Orleans are on that side of the Mississippi.
All right, let's pull up the map.
Right,
because I can't now do it in my head. I got to pull up.
But like when you just
the map
look at
on
it
the phone.
Like objectively, like that should be that's been the dividing line between the east side of the country and the west side of the country for years, the mighty Mississippi. And yes, Memphis and New Orleans.
Oh yeah, so Memphis is on the east side of the Mississippi River. It's right on it, though.
Yeah,
that's the reason Memphis exists, is because of, and obviously New Orleans is the Delta.
Where it dumps out.
So
it works out
It looks
perfect.
like Minneapolis is further west than you think.
Okay, fair enough. So
it's like dead set middle of the country and then up.
Unless you want to discuss
but there's nobody else around.
Any Texas 2 steps? Houston, San Antonio, right? It's all kind of.
I think you keep them in the way. Yeah, it's just. I'm looking at the map, right? The map's right here. You take Memphis, you take New Orleans, you bump them to the east.
Done and done.
I mean, Memphis is closer to Indianapolis than it is to, like, I even think, like, Houston.
Oh, yeah. No, I mean,
And that's me basing it off of looking at the map on my phone, not doing any actual research.
Yeah, no, I think that'd be a pretty simple thing. It's probably going to be close to the end of the decade, but you just think about logistically. T-Mobile Arena exists in Vegas. Climate Pledge Arena exists in Seattle. You have that as a starting point. Now, I'll say this. I've never seen – well, actually, I was too young. I've never can recall seeing expansion in my lifetime, Justin. But it would be a interesting exercise because you only get to protect 9 players.
Yeah, that would be real fun
So
to see what the expansion draft would look like.
That would be – or 8 players with 2 teams, I think. So that would be very, very interesting.
Yeah, because I remember when the then Vancouver Grizzlies came into the league. I also remember when the Toronto Raptors came into the league as well, because Jurassic Park was that was back when we were really naming teams after movies, right? We had the Anaheim Mighty Ducks, and then we had the Toronto Raptors, and we're just naming teams after movies at this. They were really trying
for Canada, weren't they? Toronto
works, and it has worked. And from what I understand, the Raptors have a huge fan base, and yeah, Vancouver, I guess it just didn't work.
And the Couve would have been awesome, man. I mean, hey, Vancouver Grizzlies makes sense. I don't know if there's very many Grizzly Bears in Memphis.
I think they tried to there was a whole thing, I don't know, to justify that it's just there's a Southern Grizzly,
and that old logo too. Oh, with the teal, that was that old logo, Justin.
Can I give you a hot take? For that. Can I give a hot take though? A lot of people won't like this take, but it is a. The teal got a little bit too much in my youth.
That's fair. That's understandable.
In my youth, it got the Mariners went teal. There was a time in the 80s where baby blue, powder blue, which everybody looks back with fondness. But I remember the 80s thinking those powder blue uniforms, the Phillies wearing powder blue, that seems stupid. And then we all know this nostalgia for powder. The teal, it was the Jaguars were new. The Diamondbacks were new. The Carolina Panthers were new. The Grizzlies were new. Every new, gold darn team had to have teal in it. And then the Mariners introduced, we have new uniforms. They're teal now.
I think
it got to be a bit much.
Oh, totally understand. I think baby blue.
The San Jose Sharks, they're new. What are their colors? Teal.
Yeah, it kind of belongs. It's kind of maybe a hot takey, but it kind of belongs to 2 schools. And I think everyone else that uses it, you have to use it sparingly. Belongs to North Carolina. They can wear it anytime they want.
They have Carolina blue. It's their own color.
And it belongs to UCLA. UCLA and those powder blues, same. It's funny. It's literally the coasts, and everyone in between. You want to try to take on teal or light blue or whatever, got to cross it with those teams first.
Just nuts that, there was just a time, I got tealed out. It was just too much teal.
Makes sense.
Too much teal for me between the San Jose Sharks, the Memphis Grizzlies, the Carolina Panthers, the Jackson, not every new team has to have teal, guys. We don't have to do it. All right. You know what we do have to do? Make or miss. That's coming up next, 620 Rip City Radio. All right, 1 hour from now, our good friend from the I-5 corridor, Tyson Alger, is going to be joining the show. Get his thoughts on what is going on with Oregon football. Is this fixable? Is it time to panic? Is this maybe kind of par for the course? We maybe should have expected this, but we all got a little bit, got a little bit starry-eyed with the amount of stars next to the names of the recruits coming in the Dan Lanning era. But, when you look back at the history of Oregon football, this kind of happens. Mike Bellotti came in 1995, went to the Cotton Bowl and went 9-2 that first year and was a bounce away in a game against Arizona State and a game against Stanford of going to back-to-back Rose Bowls. It was close in 1995. And then after that, 96, they kind of fell off and then got back into it. You go to, Mario Cristobal, right? Mario Cristobal came in 2018. 2019 wins the conference. Now, I know that 2020 was COVID, but they lost to the Beavs. They lost, who else? They lost to Cal.
Oregon State went 2-5 that year, for what it's worth.
Now, one of those wins was a empty stadium Civil War victory.
Oregon State was not a good football team that year. I tell people, someone told me that yesterday, and I was like, okay, 2022, great win for Oregon State. Dan Lanning probably still has some nightmares about that game, considering how bad that one. Like there were never collapses against Washington, right? Like that was a collapse. And you think about, okay, maybe there was.
A bit of a collapse the week before.
That's fair.
Yeah.
But that being said, like
a 10-point lead in the fourth quarter.
It's like 2020, Justin. Like I told my brother this the other day. I was like, I'm not convinced that all the Oregon State players wanted to be there. I'm starting to think as I've gotten older and just reflected, like, we sure that Verone McKinley's not like, the heck with this game when he went.
When he grabbed Tristan Gebbia's leg.
I don't know, right? It was such a weird time.
It was a weird time.
I just don't know if anybody wanted to play that game.
Nothing about it felt like actual real football.
No, I wasn't even there, Justin. I could have been with a mask on and 10 feet apart, and I was like, yeah, no, I'm catching this one on TV, man.
But, like, you look at even Chip Kelly, right? Chip Kelly in his first year wins the conference. The second year goes to the national title game. Third year in, I know that it sounds silly to say, Justin, they won the Rose Bowl that year. I know they won the Rose Bowl. But you also have to remember that year, they lost first game to LSU. Then they had that inexplicable loss to USC in that game as well. Like, coming into 2011 with high expectations, and then they lose to LSU and lose to USC and ultimately lose a chance to potentially play for another national title. Like, these kind of things. Helfrich, first year in, 2013, good, not great team, but goes to the Alamo Bowl. Second year in, plays for a national title. Third year in, new quarterback, fall off. This happens. Now, I realize there's NIL and transfer portal and everything else, but, when the only other time, like, Oregon in the last couple of years when they replaced their quarterback and got massively better was when they brought in Marcus Mariota in 2012. And that dude would ultimately win a Heisman. So I know there was a lot of expectations coming into this season, but also if you kind of look back at just the history of Oregon football and college football, replacing a Heisman Trophy candidate quarterback in Bo Nix, it's tough. It's 2002. Oregon had to replace Joey Harrington, and then they thought they had it with Jason Fife. And Jason Fife was a good quarterback. Not great, but he was good. He was 6-6 that year because you replaced a ton of guys. Anyways, we're going to talk to Tyson coming up in an hour. I also may have jeopardized our friendship with a little tweet I put out that I want to talk to him about as well.
Not to mention, we also got to a good time since we had a moment here for Make or Miss, Justin.
Yes.
I'll let you, since you have the big booming voice.
Thank you.
You might want to let the people know that you're going to be able to be found. It'll be posted tomorrow, but you will be found on beaversedge.com.
That's right. You're letting me back on the podcast. I thought I was banned for life after last year.
Can't get any worse than Justin's prediction last year, so that's my mentality.
Brenden asked me flat out, do you think Jonathan Smith's going to be back? I said, I'll give it 51%.
He did.
He'll be back. Turns out it was 0%. And
he had already signed the contract at that point.
Might potentially have already signed the deal. Definitely the private jet to East Lansing was fueling up.
Classic. But no, yeah.
And it wasn't my fault. I felt like some of the blame got put on my shoulders, and I thought I was going to be banned for life. Coming back. Somebody on the Beavers edge. The Beaver fans love me.
Do they?
They love me.
Do they? Though?
They act like they don't.
Or are the Beaver fans appeased because your producer can kind of keep things anchored from time to time?
I will say this. I believe this is why Beaver fans love me. Even though I am the biggest Oregon homer there could possibly be, I still think I get a little bit of respect because I grew up in this state. And I picked my team just like the rest of us did. As opposed to, some Johnny-come-lately coming in from out of state.
So can I throw in?
Who thinks that the Sun started at Oregon football in 2007 and is like, no. So I think that's why the Beaver fans, they at least respect me.
And I love and respect you too, Justin. But you fit into that group of Duck fans that did not go to your university.
Yeah.
So
most of the people in this state, most of my friends who are Beaver fans did not go to Oregon State.
Which
you're like one of like two that I know.
Oh, that's crazy.
Not that crazy. I
would be willing to.
Brenden, you've lived in your Sherwood Bowman utopia. Go down to the dirtball counties that I grew up in. You will find a lot of camo Oregon State hats of people who never even went to college. That's a lot of your fan base, and that's fine. I love it. I would venture to say that the majority of football fans in this state did not attend either Oregon or Oregon State, who are fans of a team in Civil War. More than did.
That's fair. I think considering
considering
that your fan base has things like Ducks in New York, right? Your fan base is a million times worse in that regard. A million times worse.
Okay, well, now that's a little bit of splitting hairs. It's like, I don't think it's that bad. It's not that bad to pick. If you grow up in Oregon where there's no professional football team, you pick a side. Whether you go there or not, you pick a side.
But there's like a superiority complex of like, Justin, I paid thousands of dollars to go to that school. And I don't know. Like I said, like that's always.
Well, what do you think about like the Beaver fans who didn't go to Oregon State?
I don't know if you're as true as someone who went there. I mean, you're talking to someone who's a fourth-generation Beav, Justin. It means a lot to me. So, I mean.
That is a bit snooty. I don't know if I would say that on the podcast. I don't know if I would say that. I think there's some maybe paying customers at beaversedge.com who maybe didn't spend time in the residence halls there in Corvallis.
I mean, I think it makes your fandom even more special. It pushes it to a different level.
I say this with respect. I wholeheartedly disagree with you. I don't know if I disagreed with you more on anything other than this, because again, I believe
in 4 years. Okay,
I seriously, not in a mean way. I am the exact opposite. I think in this state specifically, you grow up and you go to elementary school and you pick a side, and there are millions of people who grow up in this state who don't have the opportunity to go to college, who have other ideas and where they want their professional lives to go, and to think that fandom isn't as special because somebody else went there, I disagree with that wholeheartedly. But that's the beauty of this show is we get to disagree with each other and then put on fun music and do make or miss. Here we go.
Maybe we should all Venmo the Auburn quarterback.
I mean, you know what's funny, though? Like, Oregon just played Boise, right? You want a little fun story time with Uncle Justin? You probably remember this, Brenden. I don't know. It was a very big deal. But Oregon in 2009, they're coming off of a big Holiday Bowl win against Oklahoma State. Chip Kelly takes over. Vibes are high. Vibes are high in Oregon football land. Everybody loved Mike Bellotti, but the fact that Chip Kelly didn't leave and the offense was, and then they go in and they had that disaster. Remember that disastrous game against Boise with Byron Hout and everything else? There was a fan that sent Chip Kelly an invoice to charge him for the money it cost to travel to Boise. Think he did it as a joke. You know what Chip did? Wrote him a check. Wrote him a check. That was there was no Venmo back then, but after Oregon lost to Boise in 2009, Chip Kelly got an invoice from a fan saying, yeah, this is for money for travel, and everybody was like, what? And Chip Kelly was like, yep, I'll go ahead and write you a check. And you know how much goodwill that bought him? Now, I'm not saying that any college kid should be paying any degenerate gambler money for the Venmo, but it just was interesting that when I saw that story this morning, instantly thought of 2009 Oregon. And then we also learned that Chip Kelly's first name was Charles because the guy took a picture of the check and he blacked out the important parts and then said, oh, Chip Kelly just sent me a $500 check. I'm not going to cash it. And we all learned Chip Kelly's first name was Charles. You ever thought about sending an invoice to a head coach?
No. I mean, I would never be that inflamed, passionate to go after a head coach for money. Like, if that's the case, then I should be owed damage. Me and many other Beaver fans should be owed damages by Jonathan Smith. So,
maybe you'll find his Venmo.
No, because he's just not worth it anymore. It's like, throw a little shade every now and again, but they're 2-0 doing their thing. We're 2-0 doing our thing, and I'll be the biggest Oregon Duck fan in the world in about 3 weeks, and I'll be very excited to hopefully watch.
But you didn't go to school there, though. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
As fair as it is, but you know this, Justin. I have never actively rooted for Oregon in my life, so it will be the first time that's happened in 28 years.
I'm trying to think.
So maybe once or twice. Maybe once or twice. I'm not going to say never. Maybe once or twice. I don't
know if I've ever actively rooted for Oregon State football ever in my life.
Right? That's what I'm thinking. I'm like,
baseball, though, I wanted that baseball team to win the College World Series in 2006. I knew
not a fan of the back-to-back game.
What's that?
Not a fan of the back-to-back game.
What's the back-to-back game?
Was it went 06, 07?
Oh,
You said
sorry.
06.
06 was just the first. Because I knew some guys
gotcha.
on that team.
Yeah.
And I knew coaches on that team.
You did play baseball and had connection with baseball players.
So I knew some of those guys. But I don't know if I've ever actively rooted for Oregon State football.
So
that is a pickle, yeah.
Right. So, and you're obviously a few years older than me. So for me to be able to, that's like that. Like, if that, Justin, doesn't show you the, and I'll preface this by saying, there are Beaver fans with a wide variety of opinions. It's kind of a little debate that pops up at Beaver's Edge that I love to check out weekly. Is there are the Beaver fans who are again, QB9, no name QB9. There are those who are whatever. And then, shockingly enough, there are not many, but there are a few who are wish him all the best. And it's just kind of fascinating to see what Beaver fans are yeah, no, you can kick rocks, dude. And others who are just yeah, whatever. So, I've kind of told you, and Justin, you wouldn't respect me if I wasn't consistent. And at least I've been consistent throughout the whole way. Is you gotta kick rocks.
The other thing we've talked about this before. The way there's no good way to break up with someone, right?
No.
There's no good way to break up with a team.
And I would not hold it against you if you felt the same way, Mario. Totally.
The crystal ball thing. If Oregon didn't get Dan Lanning and Oregon was kind of left high and dry, or in the same deal with a conference thing, probably would feel some kind of way about it. But
what if Mario was a player? And your best.
That's what I'm saying. He was a player at Miami, so you're I get it.
So
I don't like it, but I
yeah, I
get
mean,
it.
it's kind of interesting because I don't think we've ever really compared it. But say Mario Cristobal was a star player at Oregon during their best season ever.
I know.
Would that? Yeah, that would have to hurt more.
The whole
would
thing,
have to hurt more.
The whole
right?
thing is crazy, which is why we're still talking about it to this day. He's 2 games in at Michigan State. But the other thing is, there is no good way to break up with it. Even Lane Kiffin, which I give him respect when he broke up with Tennessee,
That was bad.
he went to the press conference and took the slings and the arrows. I don't know if that's the way I would do it, but there's no good way to do it, especially with as fast as news gets going. And, I remember when Willie Taggart was calling a team meeting and then that news got out and it's like, Willie Taggart called a team meeting. We know he's gone. Like, we all knew it. So there's no good way to do it. But Jonathan Smith is a smart football coach. He is not charismatic in any way, shape, or form. And I think he would be able to get away with that in Corvallis because of all the things he did for Oregon State football in the past. I don't know how much patience they're going to have in East Lansing with the fact that Michigan State has 2 rivals, right? Michigan, who is the reigning national champions. Now, they got thumped on Saturday, and they might have some more problems replacing Jim Harbaugh than maybe people in Ann Arbor think. And then their other rival is Penn State. And Penn State, they're really good too and don't seem to be fading anytime soon. If you don't get Michigan State up to that level and then you bring in that just kind of awkwardness that Jonathan Smith brings, Mike Gundy is a charismatic coach. And he also played at Oklahoma State, which is interesting in this whole, but you know what I mean? Like, you get a charismatic coach, you get leeway. You get a little bit you have a little social awkwardness. I don't know how long, if you don't have a credit built up with that fan base, I don't know how much it's going to last.
And you think about it, I might be butchering it a little bit. Might be just be the first year. I know for sure Mike Gundy's first year, and that was after Les Miles left them. This was Les Miles and Mike Gundy is his OC, and very similarly to like a Oregon State Trent Bray situation. It's like, all right, well, here's an alumni who is sitting here on staff already, and Justin, you never hear about the times it doesn't work, right? Because about 80 to 90% of the time, it doesn't work to hire the coordinator, right? It doesn't always work, really, in basketball. But
it was funny because, Oregon had, such a run where they had, Bellotti was the offensive coordinator, and then Chip was the offensive coordinator, and they're like, let's just do it again. And it worked for 2 years, and then it didn't. But, yeah. Usually, especially the long-term coordinator, there's usually a reason why you're a coordinator.
Right. But it's like usually they were a coordinator for all that time for some reason. But all that to say, let's get to one more, Justin, before we close it out. Need more proof of the NFL being dominant? See the TV ratings.
I did not see the TV ratings. I assume they were through the roof. I assume they were gigantic.
21 million viewers per game, a 12% increase over the last year. That'll get her done. It's making a lot of executives real happy, Justin.
Why do you think that's a 12% bump over last year? I
think
now I'm going to bring in an anecdotal thing because of me. That's what I'm wondering, is that more and more people are being like me. They've basically been forced to cut the cord. And, the NFL the whole time is sitting here going yeah, we're on free TV. We're on, you go out and you buy a TV out of the box, plug it in, you can watch an NFL game on Sunday. That's all. You don't have to have internet. You don't have to have cable. You just have to have power to your house. You plug it in, you shall be able to turn on that TV and watch an NFL game.
You need the rabbit ears, though, right?
I think you could still.
Or can you just get it through the signal in the TVs?
I haven't tried, but
okay. I'm I don't know. I don't know either.
Okay, then you go to your basement or you go to your attic and you find an old set of rabbit ears. But you can buy a TV. That's huge.
It is.
You can't say that about baseball and basketball. You can't I guess NBC does it, but you can't say that about baseball and basketball. And I think more and more people cutting the cord, and the NFL's the easiest sport to find other than college football.
Actually, I guess the good news is, obviously nothing official, Justin. Now I don't want to put it in the, but like that is what we expect will happen with the Trailblazers, right? The Trailblazers will be
so much easier to find.
Right. We expect them to be on a local network, and that local network will most likely be channel 2, 6, or 12. Just.
But not number 8.
Is it 8? Didn't we say 8 has the Kraken?
Yeah, they already have the Kraken.
Yeah,
right.
I think 8 would be tough. But again, we don't know. I'm surprised we haven't heard anything on that, to be honest.
All right, there we go. There's Make or Miss. We have got, what are we doing? Stuff we saw on the internet coming up next, 620 Rip City Radio. All right, time to wrap up hour number 2. Stuff we saw on the internet. Boy, the internet was on fire last night, wasn't it?
Some
Internet was
things
on
that could
fire.
have fired people up.
Internet was on fire last night. It's actually kind of fun. It was more fun to see the reaction than to actually watch the debate. I did my civic duty. I watched the debate. I'll leave that to myself, what I
I
felt.
did my civic duty.
I feel like it's an important thing to watch and to at least somewhat become an informed electorate. The opinions of said debate, I'll keep that to myself because none of you guys want to hear about it from me. What was funny was watching the reaction of people. Both sides were having themselves a good old-fashioned freak out last night. But before that, there was a mini Colorado controversy that happened yesterday. So Deion Sanders of the Colorado Buffaloes got shellacked by Nebraska. Afterwards, Shedeur Sanders, who left the game early now, I think there were some reports that they thought he might have a concussion, and so he was going in to take concussion tests. But this is the thing, we're going to talk about perception versus reality here in the next 7 minutes with regard to Colorado. The fact that people believed that Shedeur Sanders would leave a game early in 2 minutes when it's not going his way is telling. Now, I don't believe that he did. I would believe that he got sacked 7 times. He probably had to go have a concussion evaluation when you get sacked 7 times by what looks to be a pretty nasty Nebraska team. Nasty in like the best possible way. But the fact that people believed that he left early because maybe he was upset that it wasn't going his way kind of tells you the perception of Colorado. Perception isn't always reality, but sometimes it's more powerful, which again brings up the next story because it was reported, then refuted, but it was reported that Deion Sanders had informed the Colorado band that, as tradition in every college place, that they would play the fight song after touchdowns. Mighty Oregon's played after Oregon fight song. What's the Beavs fight song? Hats off to you.
Hail the old OSU.
So, Colorado's been playing...
Heavily changed lyrics over the years, though, I've learned.
Really?
The OG versions, like, never sang. It's like the last verse, it seems like always. And, not like anything crazy, but just like words you're like, oh, that was a word in like the 1800s. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. Well, plus, didn't the opening line, our hats are off to you? Wouldn't that be... You need to bring that back.
Or
hey,
it's still
hats
Hail
off
the
to you.
Old OAC is what it started as.
Yeah.
So that should tell you,
So, the report surfaced from 104.3 The Fan that Colorado football coach told the school's band not to play the fight song after Shedeur Sanders scores, whether a pass or a run, and that the quarterback song, his own song, the terrible one that he did with Lil Wayne, Perfect Timing, could play on the stadium sound system. So he has his... Now, that has been refuted. Deion Sanders denied the report, and the school issued a statement. He said, whoever reported that, I told the band the fight song, that's idiotic, he said. It sounds like, I think, the game day operations, because, look, Colorado is in the planet of Deion. They're in Deion Sanders' orbit, and that's the little bubble that they are living in Boulder. It's the Boulder Deion bubble. And it would not surprise me if game day operations would be like, hey, we're going to play this song because they're fully bought in. They're fully indoctrinated into the whole Deion spell that he's got them. But the fact that people believed it is fairly telling. Now, maybe I'm being a bit of a hater. I have said this before when it comes to Colorado. Maybe I'm a bit of a hater. And it's really the weirdest sports opinion that I've ever had, because anyone who knew me as a kid knows that I love Deion Sanders as an Atlanta Brave. I love Deion. Deion Sanders was in the MC Hammer Too Legit to Quit video wearing an Atlanta Falcons starter jacket. I had that starter jacket. I wanted to wear a bandana like Primetime did under my helmet until my coaches were like, absolutely not. That is not allowed. That is against the rules. I love Deion, but like The idea that you could just waltz in, change college football in a year or two, and go, you guys are all idiots. This is how you should be doing it. And then when things go wrong, blame everyone else instead of just going like, yeah, we got to get better. No, even yesterday, he was like, everybody's going to come at me because we lost. I've been up on the cross. Like, what? Did he just say he's been up on the cross as a reference? Anyways, moving on. The fact of the matter is that there was a story that Deion Sanders told the band not to play the fight song, which he did not do. But the fact that people believed it kind of tells you something. And at the beginning of the season, I think there were a lot of people saying, like, I still think it's probably more than likely that Deion Sanders comes back to Colorado. After that game against Nebraska, where it is clear they have miles to go. They have miles to go before they are competitive just to try to make a bowl game. By the way, Matt Rule and Nebraska, same timeline as Colorado. In case you're wondering, Matt Rule, Deion Sanders, hired the same year. Colorado, Nebraska. While Colorado was 1-11, Nebraska, I think, was like 3-8. Or 3-9. What were they the last year under?
4-8, I think.
4-8? Not much better than 1-11. And the fact that now Matt Rule has got a legit quarterback, and not saying this Shadour's not legit, but Dylan Raiola looks really good, and Colorado looks like they are miles away from competing. But he did not tell the band not to play the fight song. We have got another third hour of the big show coming up next, 620 Rip City Radio.
8 a.m. on a Wednesday. Brenden Slaughter with you for Rip City Mornings. The Tyreek Hill saga continues to unfold as Hill calls for the escalating police officer to be fired following the altercation that happened over the weekend. NBA Commissioner Adam Silver says that NBA expansion is on the table eventually, but that it wasn't discussed at this Board of Governors meeting. And a crazy story out of Auburn, Alabama, as quarterback Peyton Thorne says that sports bettors have been asking him for money via Venmo after their 21-14 loss to Cal. Coming up on the big show about 20 minutes, we can catch up with Tyson Alger. Also got the RCM mailbag. Whole lot more. Final hour coming up.
Hey, welcome back to Rip City Mornings, everybody. Hopefully you are all having a fantastic Wednesday. We're going to talk to Tyson Alger from the I-5 corridor in 20 minutes. We have got the RCM mailbag coming up as well. If you are new to the show, welcome. We're having a good time. If you like what you hear, hey, tell a friend. Also, if you've been hanging out with us for a while, we appreciate you. We thank you. If you could tell a friend as well, do us a real solid. We talked a ton of college football. We're going to talk some more, like I mentioned, when Tyson joins the show. And there's a lot of Oregon fans panicking, but I want to continue on the panic theme because in college football, no different than in the NFL, after week one or, say, week two, when things aren't going exactly as expected. And I think a lot of it is because we spend so much time anticipating the opening weekends of both college and the NFL. I mean, just look at the numbers alone. What was the rating? 20 million people? Average of 20 million people watching NFL games on Sunday?
12% increase from last year.
And they were bad games. We mentioned it yesterday. Like, there was a handful of guys that looked good at quarterback. A lot of bad quarterback play. Even still, it's kind of like it's like the McRib and Girl Scout cookies. Like, football has figured, like, you take it away just enough. Like, just enough in the summer, and then all of a sudden it's like, feels like the coldest drink of Gatorade on the hottest summer day. It's like, this is exactly what I've been missing. This is exactly what I need. And I think,
speaking of that, Justin,
I think they've got that part figured out. Yes.
Very random little aside here. Where do you stand on because I remember back maybe more back in your previous life, but at a certain point, I know you enjoy a good gas station.
I love a good gas station.
Yep. And the best gas stations, I think, and I know you've told me you ride for the bottled soda as opposed to a fountain drink.
100%.
Totally respect.
Always.
But it was funny. The other day, I was chatting with my sister, and she's like, I went over to the store or went to the gas station, and when she left, my brother-in-law, her husband, asked, which gas station are you going to? Because if you go to this one, they have Powerade on tap in the fountain, and I want you to get me one. And
okay.
I've, like, Arco in Corvallis, you've got Gatorade on tap, too, same kind of thing. But it's very rare. Where do you stand on a non-soda being in a fountain soda? So maybe something for the mailbag. Maybe you can throw it out there and get back to it.
You can't just throw that out to me right now and not expect me to at least 3 minutes on this. I am out on everything other than lemonade. Lemonade's okay on the in the fountain, but
you're not riding for high C fruit punch McDonald's either.
No,
very famous.
Here, people wax nostalgic about certain things, and I remember as a kid, every once in a while, right? Because I had my birthday parties at Abby's. Okay, Abby's was my jam. That's where I wanted my birthday party. I wanted a T-shirt that said I got like an Abby's. You got a T-shirt.
No way, really?
If you had your birthday party at Pietro's, you got a I partied at Pietro's T-shirt.
Wow.
But every once in a while, you would have a friend who would have their birthday party at McDonald's. And you would think, as someone who grew up loving McDonald's, still love McDonald's to this day, you would think that would be the coolest place to have a birthday party. It was not. And I'll tell you why. You get cordoned off, right? You get a limited, everybody gets a Happy Meal. and you just kind of you don't get to. And they had this big jug, like a Gatorade jug, but it was a big yellow McDonald's jug, and it was filled with the high C.
High C fruit punch, baby.
Orange, the high C orange.
Yep.
Is what was in there.
Yeah. High C orange. Okay.
Yeah. I want a Coke. I wanted a Coca-Cola.
Fair.
That's what I wanted. And so I was like, can I get a Coke? And they're like, nope. Everybody gets a high C orange. And I'm like, I don't want that. So
was Justin trying to?
No,
be...
I didn't fight it, but in my head, I'm like, but I don't want that.
Just
so
you
the
were
birthday,
so yeah.
The birthday parties at McDonald's seemed like it wasn't any more fun than. And then they would bring out this McDonald's sheet cake with Ronald McDonald on the top, and it was like, this is not as fun as just going to McDonald's on a Tuesday.
Now, granted,
and just going to McDonald's regular. You go to Abby's or you go to Pietro's on a birthday. Whoo boy, they bring out pitchers of root beer and pitchers of Coke, and they bring out maybe a 7-Up, and like you fill
your choice. Yeah,
you get that big jug of orange. That's all you get at McDonald's, that big jug of orange.
I think I think there's an opportunity. Again, Just, you said you didn't make anything, but you could have been like the poster child, the first child of the Gen X, who was like, I don't want that. I want something else. And maybe it would have actually stuck.
You didn't talk back to adults back then. You certainly didn't get your choice of things in terms of food.
Different.
You get what you get, and
but it was still cool to go to the play place. I remember we had one.
Okay, again.
We had one. I had one birthday at McDonald's that I can remember as a kid.
Yep. Now you got to realize your McDonald's play place is different than my McDonald's play place. Your McDonald's play place was awesome. It had a ball pit. It had a fort. Right. It had a slide.
3 slides.
3 slides.
We did. It was pretty great.
Our McDonald's play place. Look. Google McDonald's play place 80s, and there's a Mayor McCheese, which you could go and get inside Mayor McCheese, but it didn't do anything. It was all hard shell plastic and beating down in the sun. You could Grimace. I think Grimace might have been a slide, but the slide was metal.
Indoor or outdoor?
Outdoor.
Oh, yeah, ours was indoor.
Man. Yeah. Everything was outdoor.
Yep, I see the pictures.
Rained, good luck at the play place. And there was a merry-go-round that, if the big kid got on there, you were flying off of that. Flying off of it.
I remember that more in elementary school, but yeah.
Yeah.
It's true.
That's all they had. Couple teeter-totters.
It wasn't all inside and heated and like not wet and
what
like
a privileged life you have lived.
I don't pretend to not be.
You have led to have only an indoor, air-conditioned or heated, non-rain McDonald's play place where there's a fun little ball pit to jump into.
Oh, yeah, Justin.
We didn't have a ball pit. Are you kidding me?
And on top
what
of
do you
that,
think this is? Chuck E. Cheese?
On top of that, we had our choice. We had the one in Sherwood, we had the one in Newburgh, the one in Tualatin. Like, they all had play places. They were all inside, man. So, 100%. Maybe they've just made some progress since the 80s to the 2000s. Because now, I think it's very rare to find a McDonald's with a play place. I believe the Sherwood one still does. But again, Justin.
Like I said, who goes and eats inside a McDonald's anymore?
It's not
like, you don't do it.
Yeah. So.
But yes, it was the McDonald's birthday party. Like, you would get. It was a bad piece of cake. And again, I was a kid, so it was cake. But, like, you see these people on like, they pop up on my TikTok feed all the time where it's like, oh, you remember McDonald's birthday parties where you would get all the high C orange you could drink? It's like, yeah, but I didn't want high C orange. I wanted a root beer. Can I get a root beer? No, we can only get high C orange, and everybody gets a Happy Meal. Oh, and you would get the cookies, the McDonald's cookies. You would love them because I'm pretty sure they were shortbread cookies. But
tell me,
as far as a treat, like,
you're probably like, these suck.
They were terrible.
Just like, where's my chocolate chip?
Cardboard. What are we serving here?
But no, that's interesting.
All that being said, I'm out on the fountain drink that is not a carbonated soda. I am all about now. Again, lemonade. I'll give you lemonade. I might even give you some iced tea, even though I don't like iced tea.
Yeah, he wanted that large power of some ice, man.
Now, I've not met any of your family. I hear a lot about them.
It's true.
And maybe one day we'll have a big old barbecue. But maybe one day I'll get invited on the boat. I don't know. But
I can maybe make that happen.
that might be a couple months, though.
Hey, we like to have drinks, so it's your kind of fun. I'll say that.
Darn right.
Justin's kind of fun.
Yeah, there's no way I'm going around anybody. The drinks aren't going to be served. But that being said, Powerade, huh? Because I'll tell you what, right now.
It caught me a bit by surprise, too. But just
if there is not a if the only time I'm drinking Powerade is if Gatorade isn't available. Like, I'm not like full on committed to the Gatorade, but like if there's a choice, I mean, there really isn't.
Like if I didn't
there really isn't a choice.
Because we can play a lot of things on this show, Justin. If it wasn't for the fact that I'd have to edit out the normal amount of curse words in it, I would love to play the Talladega Nights Ricky Bobby dinner scene when he sits there and goes, my
Powerade
endorsement,
Mountain Blue,
yeah. My endorsement,
Mystic Mountain Blue.
My endorsement with Powerade says I have to mention Powerade at every single grace.
Now that being said, if the good folks at Powerade want to sponsor any part of this show, we welcome it. I am just saying now, as an unpaid endorser for either, you give me an ice cold Gatorade. And you give me an ice-cold Powerade. I'm sorry, Powerade. Get to the back of the line. This is a Gatorade town, sir.
Yeah, I think I'd probably, I don't care enough about either. Like, I just kind of like the blue or the red for either. Lemon lime, obviously, more so for OG Gatorade.
And people think I'm a psychopath. I disagree. First off, they wouldn't keep making it if everybody didn't like it. Ice-cold lemon lime Gatorade is the best.
Yeah, I don't disagree.
It is the
I don't disagree, but
best. But everybody's like, but mountain ice, but it's like, no. Ice-cold. Big jug. Boy, if I could find a glass bottle, it would be even better.
Man.
They don't sell those anymore.
Might be worth something if you found an unopened glass bottle of Gatorade, man.
Again, you're talking about how unsafe the McDonald's play place was, where people, you were just climbing up stuff, and all you had to cushion your fall was a very, very hard piece of rubber. That was also about 147 degrees in the summer because they were black and they're just getting beaten down in this like that. As unsafe as that was, we would play Little League and youth soccer, and we would get a Gatorade, and the Gatorade were glass bottles, just sitting there on the sideline. The sideline of a soccer game, and just they have glass bottles just sitting there.
That's funny you
say. Well, we did.
It's funny you say that because I remember very well my childhood best friend in third grade over the summer broke his arm in the play place at McDonald's and came back in a big old cast for us to sign. And it was, did something in the play place, man. But no, it was just
break your arm in the new play place. He must have been being reckless.
This was early 2000s.
I don't want to victim blame, but he must have been being reckless.
Yeah, we don't keep in touch anymore, so it's all good. But no, it's just so funny when we were talking. She's like, "Oh yeah, I was going to the grocery store," and Matt, my brother-in-law, was like, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna need me one of them large Powerades." And just the way that she said it to me was super funny. I'm like, I'm gonna find a way to mention that on the radio this week.
Going Powerade instead of I
don't think
like a Coke
out of
Zero
like a Gatorade out of the bottle kind of a thing, because I would assume.
Well, if you're gonna go to the trouble of getting a fountain drink.
More like dispatch my sister to
just
go
get a Dr. Pepper. Just get a Dr. Pepper, dude.
Maybe he's craving that Powerade, man. I don't know. I got some follow-up questions for the group.
Definitely need follow-up on this. Speaking of follow-up, we have got Tyson Alger coming up in just a bit. But before we do that, I do want to let you know about our good friends at Rip City Drive. Coming up September the 27th from 3 to 6, Haven Spa, Pool, and Hearth. Can't forget about that Hearth. In Clackamas, 27th of September, a Friday. Dwight and Chad are going to be broadcasting live, and we'll be collecting new and gently used sports balls for the Boys and Girls Club of Portland. Get more details on the events page at ripcityradio.com. Tyson Alger joins us next, 620 Rip City Radio. All right, getting ready for week 3 of college football, in particular, a very special, unique, and new normal is September Civil War and Oregon and Oregon State not being conference opponents, but they will be facing off at Reser Stadium. A game that has much different implications than maybe we thought a couple of weeks ago. So joining us now to take a look back at what the heck happened at Autzen Stadium on Saturday and what could potentially be happening at Reser Stadium on Saturday with regard to the Ducks and the Beavs, our good friend from the I-5 corridor. And I may have inadvertently hurt our friendship with the tweet I sent out last night. Tyson Alger back on the big show. Good morning, Tyson. How we doing?
We're okay. You know, I slept on it a little bit, and you know, the roads run parallel to each other, and I think I'm all right with that. You know, I understand it was an intended shot at the I-5, but you know, you've been here longer than I have. You've been around that highway longer than I have, and you know, some things I'll just have to take. So
much like you know, Ohio State, like they call Michigan like that team up north. It's like that highway out west is what the corridor refers to, the old 99.
Well, sure.
I mean, it's not. Look, it's, you know, just like I know that you, as you should, go on other radio shows. You still are home here. Like, I still, the of all of the corridors, the I-5 corridor is my favorite. I just felt that in a moment of you know, a little buzz last night, I thought it would be funny because, as per tradition, the Oregon bus always drove up 99 through Junction City because if you win on the road, then you stop at the Long Branch in Monroe, a tradition that ended about 2011. But it was just, I thought it was funny that an official Oregon Twitter would be like, yeah, we're heading up I-5. I was like, that's not how it used to be. And so I just thought I would throw, you know, my own little, hey, the old folks are still here. Sco Ducks, guys.
You know, those are all good points.
Thank you.
You know, I do go on other radio programs, but when I go on them, I tell my wife that I have to go do a talkie, and this is a radio program. There's a difference between the two, but you know, I guess we haven't made that designation yet. The Monroe thing is it's one of those things where I think that tradition was lost probably about 10 years ago or so. I think they kind of stopped doing the you know, stop and get a burger afterwards. But that I've been sitting here this week like wondering if we're going to get new traditions that come out of, you know, the fact that you can get sunburned at this game now. Or if we're just going to be sitting here and kind of doing like the remember when every time these two teams play. But the one kind of saving grace of it is, as you alluded to at the start of the segment, I think if you would have all polled us like 3 weeks ago, we would have said like this game would have been a bloodbath and there wasn't going to be like it was. I think we thought it was going to have like a sadder, more depressing tune to it. Mm-hmm. And suddenly we have a football game that I think is the one that Oregon State fans deserved at the end of last year. And that's not me coming on your radio program and saying that Oregon State's going to win or they're going to be competitive or this or that. But last year, Oregon State was a very good football team. It was a very important season for them, and they deserved to have a final game where they were able to give the Ducks their best shot. And I don't think they were allowed to do that last year with just the swirling of will Jonathan Smith leave or won't he? And so you have a season this year where there's a whole lot to play for both teams right now, and Oregon looks incredibly vulnerable. And I still think the Ducks will win, but I think just the combo of all that and then having this game at Reser, the fact that Oregon State's off to a much better start than like what could have been. I wonder if the fact that we might get a good football game with a lot on the line, like you might start getting some new traditions out of it. You know, I'm just guessing over here.
I mean, it is fascinating. I've talked about it. I talked about it a bit in the summer, but obviously more these last couple of days, Tyson, because, again, I've been to plenty of games where in this rivalry, there's kind of magic in the games. Now, was the magic created because it was the last game of the year, and even if you didn't have a very good season, you could essentially save your season by winning this game, or you're usually having stakes on the line in this game because it's that last game of the year, and I've always felt you can feel the energy in a building when you walk in and the fan bases are fully invested, which both sides have always been on this. Like, can you capture that magic in September? Well, closer than expected win against Idaho and a walk-off win against Boise, both at home, it may have created some magic for this game.
Yeah, and I think you're going to have a lot of good things happen for it to, I think this will be one of the better ones, out of the start of this new tradition, because like you said, there's not going to be any war for the roses, or there's not going to be any win this game to make the national championship game. Kind of like the ultimate cliffhangers there just aren't really existent anymore with the timing of this game. But yeah, I mean, the Oregon start's got me baffled, man. The fact that I'm relatively uneasy going into this game is one of the more larger surprises I've had, and I think a little bit of it too is I think a lot of us just kind of overlooked the Beavers a bit and just assumed that because they lost their coach and they lost their quarterback and they lost their running back that they lost kind of the identity of that team that they had last year. And I think I'm one of the many people who are short-sighted and forgetting the fact that Oregon State has been a team that's been really, really sound defensively for the last 4 or 5 years, especially while Bray's been here, and they're kind of they're still kind of built out of that mode. So I don't think Oregon State fell nearly as far as a lot of people like myself guessed. And at the same time, Oregon hasn't played close to that preseason number 3 potential. And so I think, this is just going to be one of those perfect matchups where you're just not quite sure about either team going into this game.
Tyson Alger from the I-5 corridor joining us here on 620 Rip City Radio. Let's get to Oregon real quick, Tyson, because look, I am as vulnerable as any other fan to preseason hype, and obviously buying into said preseason hype. But obviously you got to take some inventory in these last 2 weeks as an Oregon fan. And here's what I wonder as I'm watching NFL Network, because the DirecTV that we have doesn't allow us to watch ESPN anymore in the studio. But as I'm watching NFL Network and seeing Bucky Irving highlights, it is that reality that Bucky Irving's playing for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and he was an All-American. Bo Nix was the starting quarterback for the Denver Broncos, and he was in the Heisman Trophy presentation. Didn't take home the trophy, but he was there one of just 4 times ever. Jackson Powers Johnson is in the NFL. He won the Remington Trophy. Troy Franklin's playing for the Denver Broncos. That's a lot of dudes to replace who are all not just major factors in your success last year, but they're all in the NFL with significant NFL roles. And as much as Oregon fans want to believe that they're Georgia and Ohio State and Alabama and they're in the reload instead of rebuild, as an Oregon fan looking back, that's a lot to replace. Are we just kind of in that mode where this might take some time because you got to replace so many special dudes from last year?
Yeah, there were some really good players on that team last year. I think I tweeted during the game that Jackson Powers Johnson should have been the guy who was invited to New York last year for the Heisman ceremony after just seeing the way that the line is played. It's one of those things where during the offseason you looked at it and you're like, all right, they lost these 5-6 dudes to the NFL, but there's an answer for every single one of them coming through the portal. And I think that the Ducks had some really great fortune in how that's worked earlier. And there's still a chance that this all works out. But I think you're putting a lot of pressure on the expectation of having every single one of those guys hit, especially if you're, relying on them to be a part of an offense that a program is relying on to be as good as you had last year, when last year you had one of the best offenses in the country. You had one of the better offenses in program history. And I think it's just maybe not an arrogance, but just maybe a dismissal of how rare that is, and how uncommon it is to have talented players who are all in sync with each other like that too. Like I like to bang the drum for chemistry and thinking that like a team has to become a team. And I'm not ready to, by no means am I ready to give up on this Ducks season. I think I saw some flashes, at least in that game, that were encouraging. Like, it was nice to finally see some explosive plays, especially out of the wide receivers. I think those guys are still as good as we've hyped them up to be. In the second half, it did look like the running game was finally getting a little bit of traction. They were getting, a few carries of 10-plus yards to finally kind of like move the sticks a bit. But just, between the kind of the constant shifting of the line, it does seem like Gabriel is still kind of like finding his footing a bit. I think it's just going to take some time. But this game so intriguing this week is, if you have an Oregon season where the Ducks are gearing up to do something what they plan to this year, like Oregon State can be the ultimate spoiler before things even really get going, which is intriguing and new and yeah.
Well, I mean, the other part of it, Tyson Alger from the I-5 corridor joining us here on 620 Rip City Radio. Even the most homerish of Oregon fans, which I lean in that direction, could maybe try to say, well, looking past Idaho, that's going to happen, maybe believe in their own hype. And then after maybe Boise's just a little bit better than, that people are projecting them to go to the playoff. You go into this game and being once again a 2-touchdown or more favorite and don't control the tempo and don't control the line of scrimmage and don't have your way with Oregon State. Not saying blowout, because nothing that Oregon's done this season would suggest a blowout, but in terms of kind of controlling the game and maybe not having it be in jeopardy in the fourth quarter, which both the previous games were. Like, if you go into 3 weeks, well, then you stop the what ifs and you got to kind of maybe reflect on yourself. And I think that's kind of where a lot of Oregon fans are. At what point do you start looking in the mirror?
Yeah, because I was trying to think of I don't know if there's really a season that I've covered where there were such large flaws at the start that got fixed. And the only really thing I can think of is in 2014 when Tyler Johnstone got hurt and the Ducks and Jake Fisher got hurt and they were really short on the offensive line and they went into that game in Wazoo and nearly lost, and then they lost the Arizona game. And then Jake Fisher came back from injury, and that completely transformed Oregon's offensive line. And so, that's the only time that I can really think of a team that's kind of changed the flow of the offense state, but that's always with a big guy coming back from injury. Now, Oregon's current offensive line is banged up, but I don't think any of those are necessarily to the extent or level of a Johnstone or a Fisher being injured like that, or guys that had kind of proven themselves along those lines. This has a lot of intrigue to it, because I think Oregon has to really kind of push itself and transform itself to really reach the levels that it wanted to this year. And it's nice that we're able to do this with them being 2-0, and it's not a 1-1. Do we need to start firing people yet sort of conversation? But I tell you what, they've been close to that. That Idaho game was close. That Boise State game was really close, and I do think that it'd be a lot easier to talk down the Boise State result had they not looked shaky the week before against Idaho. Because a month ago, a lot of us were looking at those playoff projections and saying that the Boise State game could have been a potential playoff preview, and so I think that could have been reasoned away if the Ducks had already put some solid film on paper or on tape, but they just haven't yet. And so I think that's why we have so much up in the air going into Corvallis.
Tyson Alger from the I-5 corridor joining us here on 620 Rip City Radio. One last thing on kind of the Boise thing looking forward, because, you talk about the offensive line. I think a lot of Oregon fans are kind of hung up on that for good reason. The other thing I do wonder, because I think it is, some may say it's coaching. I think it's kind of a year to year where you've seen teams that are very disciplined and very locked in. And then you see some teams that are just sloppy, all coached by the same staff. This has got the feelings of maybe a sloppy football team, Tyson. That's, I would say, if people were to ask me, which some have, but what's your worry after the first? It's like, they do some dumb things and they make some sloppy mistakes that just last year's team didn't make. Now, maybe that was Bo Nix covering up some warts. Maybe that was just transfer players needing to get some extra time. But you know, personal foul penalties in the worst possible time, fumbling the ball, and I get it. Fumbles are going to happen at the worst possible time. Dropping the ball at the 1. Like, dude, we're in a 1. You just tied up the game. You dropped the ball at the 1. Like, I'm getting the word that this might be a sloppy football team.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, Oregon was awfully penalized in Lanning's first year, and then that was something that they rectified last year with. So maybe it's a thing that takes a starting lineup like a year to adjust with each other to figure out. But yeah, I completely agree with you. I mean, like, the Ducks have out penalized their opponents in the last 2 weeks. Like, they're not nearly good enough of an offense to be playing at 1st and 20 or 2nd and 15 right now. And you know, the Noah Whittington's Kalen Clay impression was almost the most devastating play in Oregon history. I mean, like, if you really think about it, like, that was the game-tying touchdown. The dude drops it at the 1, and I'm not positive that Jaden Lamar picked that up to score a touchdown. I think he was just grabbing the ball to hand over to the ref. But, like, nonetheless, like, that's one of the biggest saves I've ever seen. And if you subscribe to the I-5 Corridor, you can read about Jaden Lamar. His high school coach tells me he picks things up really well. And I was just like, chef's kiss. That's a perfect quote for a story about a kid who's picking a ball up out of the end zone. So, I think that's just another thing to add to the concerns. I think penalties are probably a little bit more coachable, but we've also seen seasons, and I'm thinking of a couple Cristobal seasons too, where that's been a theme throughout the entire year, and it just kind of chaps the Ducks even through late in the season. So it'd be nice to see them play a little bit more disciplined, but also you can fix it, but not every team is willing to fix it. So we'll see what happens.
And it is going to be fascinating to see what kind of football game we get at Racer Stadium, because, again, much like I think a lot of Civil Wars in the past that were in inclement weather in November, at least it was chilly, it always kind of had that feel of, if Oregon State uglies it up, it's going to lead to their success. If Oregon gets this thing into a track meet, pun intended, it's going to lead to their success. And even though this game's in September, it does kind of feel that way, right? It's Oregon State coming off of a shutout against St. Boy, the Beavs want to ugly it up. And I think if the Beavs can ugly it up and turn this thing into kind of a slugfest the way that they did 2 years ago, I think they're going to feel a whole lot better in the fourth quarter than maybe if this thing turns into a track meet.
I mean, you saw a bit of a path to success against the Ducks. They allowed, I think, what was it, like 197 yards to Genty last week.
Yeah, guy's really
like
good.
That.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, he's very good. I don't think the Beavers have an athlete of his caliber at running back, but they are still pretty good and sound running game, and that is a very large part of their identity.
Can you transfer and get an NIL deal midseason? Because I bet he could.
Yeah, no kidding. It's just like a one-game rental, make this like soccer where you can like purchase the contract for a day.
Like about November, like Ole Miss would be like, "Oh, we really could use that guy. We got you a deal. You want? Can we get what is it, on loan? Isn't that what they say in the football world?"
Yeah. So yeah, I think Oregon State's got a formula. You know, they're a team that hangs on to the football a lot. I think they're leading the nation in time of possession, or average time of possession right now. So, you know, I think for as much as we talk about Oregon's offense in this game, I think the keys are just like limiting Oregon State's offense and when they do have the ball, and making sure you just don't get gashed up the gut like you did against Boise State. Because I've been pretty satisfied with Oregon secondary. I think the Ducks are tackling well, but, you know, this is just going to be another tough game up front, and it's against a lot of new guys for the Ducks in that front. And I think that's probably going to be what decides the football game, because if Oregon's front seven shows up and plays to its potential, and the Ducks defense has played closer to the potential than the offense has this year, I do think that the Ducks have enough playmakers on that side of the ball where, you know, if Oregon State makes a mistake, or if they are getting a little bit loose with it, I think the Ducks will definitely be try to capitalize on that.
Tyson Alger from the I-5 corridor. You can follow him on social media at Tyson Alger, Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it. You can also be subscribed to the I-5 corridor, i-5corridor.com, and you can hear from time to time on this particular radio show each and every Wednesday. Hey, Tyson, thanks so much. Have a great rest of your week. Enjoy the football game on Saturday. We'll look forward to talking to you next week.
Absolutely, buddy. Thank you.
There we go. Tyson Alger, boys and girls. We have got the RCM mailbag to wrap up the show next. 620 Rip City Radio. All right, we are ready to wrap up the big show. Coming up at 3 o'clock is Rip City Drive. It's Ticket Tuesday. You can listen to the boys on Rip City Drive for your chance to win Thorns tickets this afternoon and each and every Tuesday. So tune into Rip City Drive with Chad and Dwight. Also on September the 27th at Haven Spoolpaw. Spoolpaw? That's not a thing. Haven Spa, Pool, and Hearth in Clackamas on Friday, the 27th. Dwight and Chad will be broadcasting to collect gently used sports balls for Boys and Girls Club of Portland metro area. All the details at ripcityradio.com. All right, here we go. Let's get to the mailbag. Spoolpaw.
Well, we already
Good one.
We already got one plug in for the show, but again, Justin, I know you were talking about Ticket Tuesday happening at 3 o'clock. It won't be live, but there's something else happening at 3 o'clock that I think really just kind of like is going to put the whole Pacific Northwest on its heels.
I will be joining the Beaver's Edge podcast. So all you Oregon State Beaver believers who are listening to this program, you get a second dose of me. You are welcome. I cannot wait.
Yeah, that podcast will be up Thursday morning, bright and early. So, excited to talk to Justin this afternoon and then let you guys all get into it.
We'll talk about it this afternoon, and then we're also going to talk about it tomorrow morning. This is an identity game. It's an identity game for both. Are the Beavs ready to have a revenge tour all season long? Oh, and for Oregon, are you who we saw the last 2 weeks? Because you do it 3 weeks in a row, even if they win by a field goal. The dreams of a playoff and the dreams of beating Ohio State and the dreams of winning the Big Ten, I think, are further ahead than maybe the eye can see. But this is an identity game.
Totally is. And I think.
And I don't say that as a demeaning thing to Oregon State. I'm saying that as a 16-point favorite. If you once again go double digits against negative against the spread, we may have to reevaluate some things.
I think Tyson summed it up absolutely perfectly, and you could even tell, and he is kind of the same way that I am right now. It's like, okay, if you're asking me to pick a straight winner, I'm probably still going with Oregon, but as Chad asked me yesterday, would I hammer a 16.5-point spread for Oregon State? You betcha I would. Now, granted, I'd have to go all the way to Spirit Mountain or ALNA to make that happen. Probably not going to happen.
Play by the rules on this.
But nevertheless, I definitely I agree with you wholeheartedly there, Justin. We'll start the mailbag here.
Yeah.
So
you're already laughing. It's going to be good.
Qualifies as a gently used sports ball? And I only asked this because you know where my brain went is Michael Scott when he shows up with the bike to put in the toy drive and Jim goes, that's your old bike, Michael? No, brand new. That's supposed to be a gift for the kids, right? No, brand new bike. So, you play with it, twice? What counts as that, Justin?
Yeah,
what's
that's
that?
a good question.
Or is it a gray area?
I mean, because
it's a great cause.
It's obviously for a very good cause. And, I think if it is, I think basketball or football, if you are going to play some pickup ball with your friends and you're just like, yeah, we can bust out this basketball. That's one you might want to be able to donate. It's the one that's peeling and cracking and
we've all
wet.
got one.
If it's a leather basketball, but you played with it outside, so it's all fuzzy.
It feels so weird on your hand. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. One of those, or a football where the laces are starting to come undone. Maybe don't give that one to the kids. Maybe just go buy one and drop it off.
We triggered another mailbag question. So fascinating, Justin, because I wholeheartedly agree.
Yeah.
Donate and help out a good cause. Is there a worst feeling on your hands than playing with a leather basketball outside when that leather's been
soaking wet
or just dirty or whatever? I feel like a football, it doesn't matter. You can throw it outside and it's still fine. But the grip of a basketball, if you're, I don't know, maybe it's my weird thing, but I've always been I hated taking basketballs outside because they weren't the soft smoothness that you had in the gym, and I was so used to on my soft hands over here. It's remember Jaws? You got soft hands, Mr. Hooper. You've been counting money your whole life. Classic reference right there. Glad Justin Cuddy got that.
What is like? I hate as a baseball player. They had like these Naga hide balls where they were like fake leather.
Just a different feel. Yeah,
they're the worst.
Yeah,
they're you can't even use them for batting practice. They were so bad. But like like a leather basketball that somebody had taken outside,
like left outside,
and it's like it's almost like a sponge.
Yes,
like it gets heavy and then if it's real, because I played outside all the time, right in the cul-de-sac. Shout out to Joel Allen Court, the one and only. And we played everything outside, but like and then you'd like shoot, and you would see like that little. It would have like the water would spin off of it. That's tough.
Yeah, I always
it's a tough look.
I always enjoyed playing football outside more in the elements than basketball, simply for the fact that it just seemed natural to have to catch a football with rain. It did not seem natural to catch and shoot a basketball with rain.
That being said, though, like football, when they get heavy and they, it's
full.
It pops your hands. Like
Justin,
I remember
you maybe have bigger
when the weather turns and having football practice and running routes and stuff. And Caleb Robbins used to chuck that thing too. He thought it was hilarious because we would have to do push-ups if we dropped passes.
Yeah.
So Caleb Robbins would just as fast as he could possibly do, and the ball is soaking wet, and then your hands are freezing cold, and the gloves we had weren't like the cool gloves they have now, and
do you have good-sized hands? Because I actually learned this week. It was my brother.
I would say I'm average. I haven't measured my hands up against another man, so I don't know.
Because the other day I gripped a full-size football. It would have been very hard for me to ever throw a football. I'll just say that.
I could never palm a basketball.
Okay.
But I could. I could chuck a pigskin.
You got bigger hands than I do.
I could chuck a pigskin.
I got Kenny Pickett over here, man.
All right, that's going to do it for the big show today. Thanks to Tyson Alger from the I-5 corridor. Thanks to super producer Brenden. And thanks to all of you. Have a terrific Wednesday. We'll talk to you tomorrow morning, 6:20, Rip City Radio.